everybody, welcome to the Improv Summit. I'm Spencer. I'm always here. And with me today, I've got the wonderful EJ. EJ, how's it going?
Hi. Welcome to Pandemic.
Yeah, Pandemic Improv.
And Pandemic Improv. So fun.
Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly.
Do you notice that for a pandemic like this, do you notice the philosophy of improv is yes and? And do you find it difficult to be that positive, optimistic yes-ander in a pandemic type of world?
Are you asking me questions now? Is it become you asking me questions? Oh boy.
Yeah, it just occurred to me.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good question. I think what's interesting is the whole foundation of improv, I would argue, is listening and yes and. But I think that with yes and, it's like, okay, here's a wrench I'm throwing into the plan, but as an improviser, can I yes and the situation and turn it into a way in which of doing improv? And I've discovered that a lot of places are taking that concept of yes anding, and they're like, yes, you've shut down the country, and we are going to keep doing classes and finding ways to create it on Zoom. Now it's a whole new experience, and I've noticed that a lot of times I like to just like really like kind of slouch so I can really lean in and see what people are doing. And I always get corrected on my posture. So I have to learn how to yes and sitting at a computer, I guess. Also my object work, because when I do my hands like I'm typing, I put it all the way up to my chin, as if that's where computers go when you type, right up to your chin. So I've learned my object work needs some work, but I'm yes-anding all the opportunities I have to improvise, if that answers your question.
Okay. And so you're yes-anding the in terms of improv world. But what about outside of like the improv world? Are you able to yes and take that philosophy into other aspects of your life?
I'm going to ask you that question. I got it on my list.
Okay.
I got to ask you that.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, not yet. I got to ask you a couple other questions first.
I'll take over.
Yeah, no, I've got the questions. So here we go. All right. Just give me a little brief history of your improv background.
Geez, brief. It's so
whatever you want. It can be long. It doesn't matter.
It's pretty convoluted, because I started in a place called HB Studios in New York City. It's an acting, a not-for-profit acting place, and it was a great place because you could, at the time, you paid like, this is not going to be brief, but you paid like let's say $150 for like 20 classes.
Jeez.
Right, like a class would be 20 weeks long or something.
Wow.
It'd be like 2 hours long. And I decided, I took some acting classes and voice and stuff like that. And then I was like, well, maybe I should try improv, because I loved at the time, Whose Line Is It Anyway? And I was like, let me see if I could do any of that stuff. So I started taking improv, and the woman there was such an interesting teacher, and she really liked me. And I took her class 3 or 4 times, I'd say. And for like years, I took her class for like 2 years, just over and over again. I just kept taking her class, and I learned so much in it that I didn't realize what I was learning. But I wasn't just learning short form; I was learning long form too. But I didn't know that. And it was a theater school, so there were props. Like, you would make a set. Sometimes you'd make a set, and then you'd give yourself a character or something like that, and then you'd just be improvising. So it was really interesting. I've never really done stuff like it since, in some ways, but so I did stuff there, and then I really enjoyed it, and I started performing in New York City. It was one of those things where you had to you paid the woman that was in charge like $20, but she gave you tickets to sell. So you could make your money back if you sold these tickets.
I see.
I normally wouldn't. I just ate the money and just performed for $20 every time. And I did that for a long time. I don't know, maybe not that long, but it felt like maybe a year or something. But it was fun because there were rehearsals, and it was a good group of people. And sometimes she would let me be in charge, so I would host and I would cast the games and stuff like that. It was all short form stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a lot of fun. Eventually, I moved to Los Angeles, where I took. I went to Second City, Groundlings, and IO West all at the same time. As soon as I moved here, and then 5 years later, I moved to Chicago, and I went to Second City there. I finished Second City there. Went to the Annoyance there, performed regularly at IO in Chicago, and performed some other places, and started coaching. I think I started coaching in Los Angeles before I left, and then I moved back to Los Angeles after 3 years, and was on a team briefly, and I still take classes sometimes. Like I don't do a whole lot of performing, but
Yeah.
when I get in that lull, I take a class.
Sure.
Like I finished my UCB class. I ended up going. I started taking UCB classes out here. Like I did like 2 levels or something, and then years went by, and of course you have to start from scratch when that much time goes by. But I went through the whole program in New York because I was spending so much time in New York because my lady had worked there, so I ended up just over like a year or two getting my UCB alum cred in New York. So I've been all over the place. And then there's like all these other weird things I'd take, like workshops, and I did some touring and in Chicago, and just a lot. I've done a lot.
Yeah, all the extra stuff here and there.
So much extra stuff.
I don't even know if I can count how much extra stuff I've done on top of the main programs.
I'm sure I would forget some things because you just do things like, I'm thinking of a show that a friend asked me to do. I don't remember the circumstances of it, but he was my teacher at Second City here in LA, and he invited some of his friends and me to do, I think it was a charity show somewhere. And I think it was short form, maybe. I don't even remember. But I was like, oh, cool. I'll get to improvise with my teacher and stuff like that. Yeah, just weird, random stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you haven't done any online improv yet, huh?
No, and I keep looking. I'm signed up on all these email lists, and I get emails all the time of, hey, take our online classes, and I'm tempted to do it, just because I haven't done anything in so long, and I'm kind of curious to see how it works. I asked a guy I know how it works. He's been teaching, although I haven't talked to him in a while. I was like, how's that work? His name's Noah in Chicago, Noah Gregoropoulos in Chicago, and he's been teaching online. And I was like, how does it work, Noah? And he's like, it's different. So, so I've been thinking about it, but I haven't pulled the trigger on it yet.
Nice.
But it sounds like there'll be lots of opportunity because this pandemic's still rolling.
Yeah, I think we're going to be here for a little while.
Oh yeah. Yep. Settle in.
Everyone keeps trying to get end dates. I'm like, I wouldn't worry about that right now. I'd worry about the everyone wearing masks part right now.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
So,
but
anyway,
I do want to help these theaters. I do want to, even if I just donate money just straight up and not take a class, I'm tempted to just pay for a class, and even if I don't have the time to take it, I just want them to have the money because I just feel I don't want any more theaters closing. IO is closed officially, and
UCB closed in New York, and Second City's moving Toronto somewhere else. Supposedly, they just closed the Toronto location at Thanksgiving.
I didn't know that. Wow.
So I think they're looking for a new place, but they might also not come back.
Yeah. Yeah, I went there. I went there 4 years ago. I was in Toronto. I ran a half marathon there,
Oh
and
wow.
while I was there, I was like, I gotta go to Second City. I was so
Hmm.
excited, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was
Yeah, that's
interesting,
awesome.
yeah, interesting, really nice theater that they had there too.
I was going to say, there's always, donations are always great, and you could always even gift a class to someone if you wanted to do that too. So that way, it
Yeah,
doesn't even, if you sign up for the class, it doesn't go to waste. You could always do that. If you don't want to, take it. But
yeah,
I found that the virtual world of improv is fun. It's very different than in-person improv. But there's some advantages to it. Of course, like anything, there's disadvantages, but there's a lot of different advantages to it because I'm meeting people from all over the world, and I'm able to take classes from different places, no matter where I live, which is
yeah.
great because
That's
I
pretty
can
interesting.
support locally from wherever that locally may be, which is really nice.
Well, I hope that even when we can all get together again and have in-person classes, there's still a way to do that.
Yeah.
That, because I might still like that opportunity to take a class for what's that place in Colorado? What's Nick Armstrong's place? Crap.
Oh, the rise,
Yeah, right, risers,
is that what it is? I'll look it
rising,
up. I want to make sure I get it right.
something like. But because I they're doing classes, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah, rise comedy.
yeah, like go Brian O'Connell just sold out a class there that he's going to teach, and
Yeah,
um,
the power play one, I think, or power play, something like that.
um, so in some ways, I hope that continues because who knows where I'll be in a few years and if I'll be near a comedy theater, And
Yeah,
I
who
think
knows?
it's that you could be in the middle of nowhere and still take a comedy class,
Hmm. It's great. I mean, because who knows where anyone's going to be in a few years at this point.
And I wonder if this pandemic is opening up those doors for people who have always wanted to, dip their toes into the comedy world, never was able to because they're never in a city, like a big city. Um, and, for whatever reason, they're like, well, let me try this online class
Hmm.
4 weeks and see what's doing and just get a sense of it. That could be really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Segueing off of that, because I want to keep it light, because I know the pandemic is always kind of depressing for a lot of people. But
Let's talk about the suicide rate.
yeah,
Let's talk about it. It's important.
yeah,
Drug addiction.
yeah. Well, speaking of all of this, but kind of not really, let's dive over a little bit to the accessibility of improv.
Yeah.
Because I know that people just assume that everything's accessible, which I've learned is just
Who's who's assuming that?
like
I don't
just
think
like
I don't think anybody puts 2 seconds of thought into accessibility for improvisers.
I guess
Uh,
that's true. I guess it's the lack of awareness of what may or may not be accessible.
yeah, no,
But
there's
that being said, what are like some things that you've come across as far as games or because I mean, like one thing I thought about is like the game Blind Line. It's kind of got its own connotation that I think it should just change the name of that. But like we talked about Zip Zap Zop before we started recording, Zip Zap Zop is not great for someone with a visual impairment because you can't see what's going on.
let's just go
But
all in. Let's call some like a Redskins game. Let's just go all in and just offend everybody.
so just go the opposite end, completely opposite
Just
end.
double down. Just double
Yeah.
down.
But
Uh,
when you've done improv with like have you discovered or have you heard about any accessibility, like questionable accessibility things, whether it's in games or just in improv theaters in general, that seem to have maybe potential accessibility needs or issues that may arise with games or locations? I don't know if that made any sense, that question.
well, I mean, geez, where do I start? I mean, even the Second City in LA and Hollywood, I don't think they fixed it, but you have to climb like 50 stairs to get up to the to the
Yep. And
classrooms.
it's a historical building, so they're not entitled to change it, I guess, or required to
No.
change it.
So if you are in a wheelchair or something, and you want to see a show there, I don't know what you do. I don't
I
know what
had someone I was work study there, and one day, and someone had called and they had asked um, if they were like, I want to take the stand up class, and they were like, sure, great. And they're like, I have one question though. I'm in a wheelchair. Can I take classes? The staff literally had to turn them away, which is really unfortunate for something that's supposed to be for everyone. Like comedy is for everyone,
you.
improv is for everyone. It's really unfortunate to be like, sorry, you can't take class with us. Like
Yeah.
it's just excluding, and it's not like an intentional. I mean, I guess in a way it can be an intentional exclusion because that staircase has been there since the 60s.
Yeah.
um, but it's like this thing of like excluding a group that's already super marginalized already, when those stories are the ones that should kind of be, all these marginalized communities should have the opportunity to play and have fun and be comedic
Well,
and have
it
improv.
doesn't make the theater look great either. If you're trying to be like, hey, look how great we are, and we're like, but we don't like people with disabilities. So, so
Right. Well, it's also like I think it's almost like as frustrating when it's like, because I will say that I've brought it up multiple times, but to like not really get any response to it, that I think hurts more. It's like, yeah, that's one person, but that one person matters. Like
well, really,
that's what I
that
think
one
is,
person represents a lot of people
yeah, exactly,
because it's not really one person; it's a lot of people. And even
for
if it's
sure.
not in a wheelchair, it's somebody on crutches, or it's somebody with something else. It's who
Hmm.
knows what. But
And I've had even audience members who have like tripped going up the stairs, or like I'm just walking through the hallway and they're like, can you help me up the stairs? And I'm
yeah,
like, absolutely, I don't mind helping you. But it's like then they feel like they're an inconvenience because they had to ask someone for help to get up the stairs.
and
And
they
it's
are
and it is
they are an inconvenience.
but by the way, everyone, EJ is such a funny guy. Just know that everything he says is a joke. Don't take it seriously.
Let's
But it is
double down.
but it is one
Double.
of I don't even know if I can finish this anymore. But I was gonna say what's interesting is like even that's, and I will say like they're not necessarily the only ones, but that staircase in particular is very steep. Like
It's steep.
it's not a normal staircase. So
It's
like
it's frighteningly steep.
yeah, it's like if I was like on a like a reality like game show. Like if I was on one of those like a Wipeout or an MXC or something, that's like it feels like that's what I would be doing is competing to see who can climb up the rocky stairs the fastest. That's
Yeah,
what it feels like.
it's scary. There's just some scary steps for sure. It's almost a ladder. That's how scary
Almost.
it is.
Yeah.
That's how scary it is. That's
Yeah,
how
that's
stupid.
true. That being said, we talked a little bit. We actually had talked about this when you were interviewing me for my own show,
Yeah.
about what you can discover with improv, that you use in your daily life. What are some takeaways that you've discovered when you've taken classes or when you've coached or when you've taught that people can gain from taking an improv class that they can use towards a non-acting, non-improv related activity or job?
Well, for me, for the type of person I am or was, I was so shy growing up. I had a hard time. I had a hard time talking to people and kind of feeling like I fit in or whatever. What was nice about improv was like feeling uh, feeling like, oh, there's a community here.
Mhm.
Even if some of these people you'll never see again, it's even for those 8 weeks you're a community. But it's nice to be like, oh, you're kind of learning how to be funny. Um, if you're listening hard enough and you're pointing, listening for like those weird moments, those slightly absurd little takeaways,
Mhm.
and then adding to those and making the person you're talking with laugh or joke around or whatever. And
Mhm.
now and if you're able to do that, now you're kind of connecting with another person. Um, there is a danger to that. There is about going too far into that, where now you're joking so much that you don't know, you're not finding out anything real about the other person, or divulging anything real about yourself.
Yeah.
So, there are certain people, and I can put myself into that category at times of being too bitty, of like, hey, I just wanna have some fun and just laugh. I have a friend that now lives in Hawaii, but he came back to LA to visit, and he's like, I miss doing bits. And so we went to dinner or something, and we just joked around. There was like probably not one serious thing said for like 2 hours, and we both had a fun time,
So the crazy thing is, I feel like I can like picture that, like you and someone else just like goofing around for 2 hours. I feel like I can literally picture that.
Yeah, I mean,
not even just in like this like 20-minute conversation, which by the way, for people that are watching, I know EJ in real life, so I know his personality not just from the 20 minutes.
Never met before.
But I've only known him for 5 weeks, and then whatever this whole thing has been happening for the past 10 months.
And that 5 weeks, there was no improvising. That was a very serious 5-week workshop, an acting workshop that we took for visually impaired people every day for, I don't know, 8 hours a day or 9 hours a day, something like that.
And sometimes on Saturdays too, we had rehearsals.
Yeah, sometimes on Saturdays. So it was very serious. And it was very eye-opening and a good experience. But I did tell Marilee, the woman that put it all together, I was like, if you do this again, I would teach some improv classes, because I just think it needs a little bit of goofiness,
a little lightness. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was an incredible program, and it was great because, I mean, having done so much improv, I was like, I don't necessarily need improv, but in the 5 weeks where I was like, oh, I just need to do something where I can loosen up.
Yeah. And it's a good, and I love improv so much because I think it encapsulates everything about acting. Writing, directing, producing, listening, acting. You're doing it all yourself on the spot and with your partners. Your partner has those same titles. You're the costume person, all that stuff. You're creating it all on the spot.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. And there's a lot of things that people don't realize with improv that actually transitions into like a general, like a 9-to-5 work job or like a construction site, whatever the case may be. You can translate improv into wherever it is. I don't know why I thought of a construction site out of all of the jobs.
Well,
but
construction, I mean, there's a lot of people working on construction sites. And I mean, there's even, I have lots of friends that have done team building, right? Team building workshops. They've taught these to people that work in, whatever.
Like Wall Street and stuff.
Wall Street, right? So that's a pretty that's pretty rigid territory, potentially, right? I saw Succession. I know what's up. And
that's all you need to know about it.
Yeah, that's all you need to know.
That's literally it.
In season 3, I hope there's a improv team building workshop in season 3.
Season 3, episode 1, part 1 and 2.
Yeah. But I think that's that same deal though, right? So they can kind of have that experience where like maybe they build something together if they went and climbed Mount Everest or jumped out of an airplane together or something like that. But instead of endangering your life, you could just have some fun and see who's funny, and just joke around and make each other laugh,
Yeah, perfect. I love it. Just a couple questions left for you. A big question that I think gets into people's heads is what makes a successful improviser. And I think a lot of times people have a very specific thing where they're like, this is what makes, like, this is why I think I would be a good improviser, because I'm funny. And yeah, improv funny is a thing, but for me, I don't think funny is like the reason you're a successful improviser, because funny comes out of a lot of other things. But for you, what do you say makes a successful improviser?
Well, for me, not even and I would not call myself a successful improviser, but I would call
Well,
people that I do,
successful in its
uh,
own way, I guess.
yeah, the people I consider successful at improvising that I really look up to. I love like Craig Kakowski is my like number one favorite
Hmm.
improviser. Not only because he's funny, but because he's always willing to try new things, and he's also always teaching, and he's also always coaching, and all that stuff. He's just always doing it, and he's so smart. Um, but I love like he and I did a lot of shows together because I asked him to,
Mm.
and he
Hmm.
said yes. And he didn't need to. He didn't need to improvise with the likes of me. Um, uh, but and not everybody would do that, like
Yeah.
at his level. I mean, he worked with Del Close, which is an improv guru who's not around anymore, but um, he's one of those guys. So he goes way back. So I do think just being kind of an openness there, I think helps you be successful.
Mm.
There's lots of really funny, great, successful in their own right improvisers, but when I watch them improvise, sometimes they they take over the
Mm.
scene or the show, and and they're funny, but the other players are chess pieces to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, Instead of just working with them as a team, you're more like a puppeteer,
Mm.
and
Hmm.
I don't love that so much. I don't love that so
Yeah,
much.
no, I agree. I think one thing that I've learned speaking with a lot of different people is it's a lot of the support and a lot of the listening to teammates that makes an improviser successful. It's not a one person job. It's a team. Like it's a team sport, which I think having all of those different things in there, the funny comes with it. But it's not the goal is not to be I'm going to be the star and I'm going to be the funny guy today. Like that's
Yeah.
not the goal of improv.
Well, I
Which
mean, and I tried my hand at stand up comedy a long time ago, and I did for a couple of years on and off. I did went to open mics and stuff, and um, I wasn't great at it. If I kept at it, I think I could have improved, but I didn't love it, And part of what I wanted to focus in on improv about was that we succeed or fail together.
mm,
You know,
mhm.
if I'm on stage and I go, I got nothing, hopefully that other person's like, you got nothing, but I got something, or vice versa.
Mhm.
And we could save each other's ass in that
It
way.
reminds me yeah, it reminds me of that story. There was a I don't remember what team it was, but I think they were doing a musical improv show. I think they had told me at IO West about it, but the whole team started like doing a scene, and one of the people during the opening number accidentally fell into the pit that was playing.
Ooh,
And so the rest of the team started one by one to just accidentally fall into the pit, which I thought was really it's like a way to yes and that like incident or that accident.
right.
It was a happy accident essentially, and it was a so that's what I love is like if I actually literally take a dive, that someone else is gonna literally take a dive with me because that's
If
what
you
makes
break your leg, I'm gonna break my leg too.
exactly that's all I ask, EJ. That's the only thing I ask of you.
Yeah.
That being said, I have one final question for you, um, which is this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this improv summit. Is I always get a lot of people, like especially pre-pandemic, but even now I'm still getting it, where people are like, Spencer, you do so much improv. I just got to ask you, where should I take improv? And to me, it always feels like it's a difficult question to answer because there's so many things that go into determining where someone should take improv. If someone came up to you and said, EJ, where should I take improv? What would be like a piece of advice or a tip or so that you would give to that person to determine where they should take improv?
Well, you could, well, pre-pandemic, I would have said, well, you could do what I did and just take them everywhere, take
Hmm.
improv,
Hmm.
or go see shows at all these different places, and whatever strikes you the most, because maybe you don't have the time or the funds to take classes everywhere. So whatever strikes you, check that out. Like let's say it was Second City or something.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in a wheelchair, don't go to Second City.
or make a very compelling notice to why now with the pandemic they should find a new location that's completely accessible.
That wouldn't be a terrible idea. I do love Second City.
I do too. I think it's great, but I also think that it's unfortunate that after what, like 60 years now at this point, 60, 65 years, it's still
funny,
like
the one in Chicago is very accessible.
mm-hmm,
That was super
mm-hmm.
accessible.
And it's almost like, well, we don't have anyone like that comes here. And it's like, well, that's because they can't. So you haven't even, it's like, it's not even like so that's the thing. But I mean, yeah, I love Second City too. I think that now's a good time for a reevaluation of the actual locations to see where they should move to make things more accessible.
But, and I guess like when I was deciding where to go to study improv, I had just read the book, Live from New York, about Saturday Night Live by the Tom Shales book. And I was considering either Chicago or LA. And what ended up cinching it for me was LA because of the Groundlings. And, I love Will Ferrell and he went to the Groundlings. So
right.
That's what cinched it for me. But in hindsight, I wish I had gone to Chicago first. But if you're unable to move your entire life to another city and you're just looking for a local place, check out your local places. Or now during the pandemic, maybe there's a place you want to support. Maybe there's just a local improv place you want to support, and take a class there. I don't know. I can't vouch for those classes, but I mean, I'm sure there's something to be taken away from them though, especially I see some of the teachers that are teaching them and they're very good. So I'm sure they're worth your time and money.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that now, because you can take places from anywhere in the world, you have so many options at your proverbial fingertips, or your literal fingertips, or whatever you want to say. But I think what's great is that one thing I've learned is there are places that I've taken like one class at and I'm like, this is not the improv for me. But there are places where I get one day in and I'm like, I love this class.
Yeah.
And and it's one of those things where I think it's like, it's okay if you don't vibe with the place to just go to another place. It's okay. Like, it's not like you don't have to like torture yourself to get through a program if it's not for you. You'll find that program that works for you.
And it's interesting because I really started in the short form mostly. And I thought, especially with Whose Line Is It Anyway, it's like, that's what I thought was the best. Because I saw a little bit of long format, like a UCB Cage Matcher and some other independent show. And it was terrible, really terrible. And I was like, well, that's terrible. That sucks. And it doesn't involve the audience enough and all that stuff, and then when I ended up moving in LA, right around the corner from IO West, just by coincidence. And I started walking around the neighborhood and I saw this theater and, it had Horatio Sands' picture up and whoever. And I signed up for classes and my classes got me into free shows. So I started seeing shows there and my mind just was blown away by the long form they were doing there. It was like some of the best people ever. I mean, so a lot of those people now are actors or producing and writing and on a lot of movies and TV shows now. But man, so amazing. Some of those shows I saw were just, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, there's a wide variety. It's amazing. And that's another thing is even if you're not sure, to just like, especially with online, you can watch an online show, or when post-pandemic, watch a show and see if you find the show funny. If you don't find the show funny or interesting, then maybe their style of comedy is not for you.
Maybe.
So anyway,
maybe they need your style of comedy.
Maybe they do. Maybe you'll be the one to make it a good show or a funny show.
That's how you should think of it. They need me.
Yes. Take everything EJ says to heart 100%, because everything he says is fact.
Yeah.
or take it with a grain of salt if you understand sarcasm. Great. Do you have we're gonna wrap up here, but do you have any like plugs or pitches or anything you want to throw out there?
Plugs or pitches. You know, there's a documentary called Running Blind on iTunes, and I think it's on Google Play and Amazon too, digital copies, where I ran 12 marathons in 12 states in 12 months in
Wow.
2000. And just to tie this into what we're talking about, I went to 12 different states and I tried to do an improv show in 12 different states. I didn't make it. I did probably maybe eight improv shows in different states with different people. And I just contacted local improv theaters there and improv groups. Like some places don't have theaters. So they just pop up. Like I did North Carolina, I did Fargo, and they just put a small stage in a bar.
Wait,
And
did you just say Fargo, North Carolina?
North Dakota.
Oh, I totally heard. I heard North Carolina, and I was like, "Is there a Fargo in North Carolina now?"
Oh, sorry. My bad.
No, it's all good. It's like I was like Fargo in a little Fargo, North Dakota.
And that was kind of fun. It was with people I'd never met before, but I really enjoy just kind of being thrown in with these groups and not knowing what to do or anything. And I was like, so half the time I didn't even know what games we were playing. I would just find out as they were telling the audience. I was like, all right.
That's my favorite, when you just don't know until you get in there and you're like, don't know what this game is. I'll figure it out as we go.
Yeah, I like that too, because then I don't have to think about it too much.
I'm more worried about the structure of the game than what I'm actually doing in it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So go check that out. You can rent or buy it on those digital platforms for $2 or $3. So it's only 30 minutes long, and you see, I raised a lot of money that year for the choroideremia Research Foundation, which is what I have. The eye disease I have is choroideremia, which is genetic and degenerative. And my grandfather was blind, and my brother has it, and my two nephews have it. So I'm legally blind now. So there you go. If you want to, I didn't mention this earlier, but as far as like accessibility for an improviser on stage, you know, these theaters, they're all black. Everything's black in these theaters. Like everything's painted black. It's hard as hell to get around for me. I've taken to like when I was doing Second City, my student shows there, or if I have to, I'll ask for help from whoever I'm improvising with or doing a sketch show with, and just say, hey, I need help getting on and off stage because there's blackouts, and somebody's got to help me. Otherwise, I'm gonna eat shit.
Yeah, I've had those experiences where I'm like, I have to like do like the thing where I put my hands out in front of me and kind of like one step at a time and make sure that I am not actually like running into anything, even though, and people are like, why are you still on stage? I'm like, I know, I just want to make sure I don't fall into something, or like, I've walked into many windows in my life. So
sure, same.
So I was like, I'm just being extra cautious and making sure that if anything gets hit, it's my hand before my head.
Yep.
But
all that stuff is pretty tricky. So I don't know. I do like, some part of me likes improv as a visually impaired person, because when it's just improvising, there's no real furniture to bump into. There's just like those two chairs generally on stage, and as long as you tell your partners that what's up with your eyes, you should be okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I think that also, you know, it's a matter of like, I've learned that when I'm like watching shows, there's a certain side of the stage or the certain side of the house that I need to sit on in order to like fully experience the show.
Yeah, I do that too.
And so sometimes I'm just like, hey, do you a lot of times I don't have it like in advance, but I'm like, hey, I know the show's pretty full, but can I sit in that seat that's reserved for latecomers, because I need to be able to see the show. And it's like, well, just sit in the one in the back. I'm like, that back corner, I'm not going to be able to see the show. That literally is where I can't see. So
Well,
if I
that's the
sit there,
thing, like letting people with disabilities in early to grab a seat. Some theaters don't really let you do it. I've had to fight and complain, like
Mhm.
I had to explain like my whole life story just to get in
right.
a few minutes early so I could scout out a good seat for a show. Yeah.
Yeah, because I have a weird thing, like the front is too close, the back is too. The back depends on how far back it is, but
Yeah.
like I have to. I also learn. People think it's interesting because like in movie theaters, I don't like to sit in the center, and people are like, "That's where I want to sit is the center." I'm like, the center doesn't work for me because I'm constantly having to like shift my vision to
Yeah.
see where I'm like. I like to sit in a corner where I know that like I can
Yeah.
focus my one eye that I can see out of on the whole screen without having to constantly shift to see
I sit
the
in
depths of the
back
edges.
I sit in the back corner, as far back as possible.
Yep, back corner is my favorite. If
Yeah.
it's too far, like if it's like a like a Pantages, the far back isn't great for me.
Sure.
But like a movie theater or like Second City or UCB, a far back corner is the perfect spot for me.
I can't even do IMAX anymore.
Yeah, IMAX it
It's too
makes me
big.
dizzy. I 3D glasses don't do anything for me. I can't see with them, so I don't get the 3D effects. So I don't bother with 3D movies.
I have tunnel vision, so if it's IMAX, I could only see. I had to see Sully in IMAX. That was the only
Mm.
theater it was playing when I saw Sully, and
Great
so
movie though.
it was a great movie. I only saw Tom Hanks's mustache through the whole thing. That's all I saw.
Oh wow.
Because it was just, I just have to move my head around so much to just kind
Yeah.
of piece together like a puzzle, like what I'm seeing.
Yeah, IMAX, well, 3D specifically, but also IMAX, they're just not the most accessible theatrical experiences,
Yeah, for
like at
sure.
all.
For
Especially
sure.
the big IMAX screens. It's already a pain in the butt to see those if you're perfectly sighted.
Yeah. Yeah, they're huge. They're huge.
Yeah. Thanks so much, EJ, for joining me here with the Improv Summit. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Yeah.